With the praise of, Father, Master bless.
Lord bless you, prayers of the Holy Fathers, Lord Jesus Christ, your God of mercy, and amen.
Amen.
Can you can you hear me?
I can now. Whatever you just did, changed it.
Okay.
Welcome everyone. Uh, it's a live Q and A session as we do every Sunday. If I seem a little out of breath, um, it's been a crazy weekend, and I got up from some rest. Just had to run downstairs, then to the first floor, and then back up. So again, it's a live Q and A. Your questions and comments, and basically, that's what we're doing today. It may be a short show. As I mentioned, we have another show coming this week where we will be bringing back the topic of kind of rebuilding from the destruction that is being caused, as well as things you can do to improve the situation no matter what is really happening. Let me see here. So I guess the first thing we can talk about again, your questions and comments. Feel free. I haven't put in the link. Okay, give me a second. Let me do that real quick. Excuse me. Yeah, as I said, I'm completely out of it. I was not expecting things to go the way they are. I'm surprised by the strange lull. There was actually blasting drum beats and Spanish music from next door, and it seems to have stopped miraculously. So give me just a moment. Add the link. And then I do go to the YouTube channel and add the call in. One moment. And just waiting. Let's see here.
So I would like to discuss real quick a news story from Ukraine.
Oh yeah. Glad
The
to.
link in the
Yeah,
private chat.
I did see it. I'm gonna link it in just a moment. We've pinned that to the top. Okay, so let me pull that up. And let's see here. All right, so let me share it. I have too many things open. Oh, they've started again. Okay. What on earth?
Can you share the screen?
I'm doing it right now. I had to find it first.
Okay. All right. So if obviously in FTU we cover some news events. So one of the most important news events that has happened in world orthodoxy, I suppose, the last week, about past 10 days, would be that the Romanian Patriarchate has created its own Romanian Orthodox Church of Ukraine, or Romanian Orthodox Church
Yeah,
in Ukraine.
yeah,
And what's happening is that previously there's something like maybe as many as a million or so ethnic Romanians living in Ukraine, because obviously, Ukraine was put together um, after the fall of the Tsarist Empire, then after World War II, and they ended up after World War II including a lot of former Romanian territories into Ukraine, right? So, what's happening? What's There's some loud noise in the background.
yeah. That's the Spanish music from next door I was mentioning.
Oh, okay.
It's going through a closed window.
Oh, stop. Okay. So, anyway, so at this point, you have now yet another um, jurisdiction that claims to be, official, added to the list of claimants to Ukraine. Now, of course, interestingly, the Romanians only claim Romanians. And the
which
Romanians,
makes
remember,
it
yes,
that
remember
that's problematic.
The Romanians also did this in Palestine a few years ago, and they also did it in, I think, Italy. They do this on numerous countries. The Romanian patriots. So
Yeah.
anyway, it's causing an issue because I believe the OCU, the Fanariates, are maybe going to try to ask the government to shut this down, which means there's probably going to be more violence and more fighting between. So,
Yeah.
but the complete instability of the system, especially the World Orthodox system, is obviously, cracks have been there for a long time, and they're not just now more visibly manifest. Because both the Fanaria created group is angry about this, as well as the UOC MP, even though they don't call them MP, but the one
Mhm.
hiring from the Moscow Patriot said about this, of course, as well. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting story. There's probably more that could be said, but
Well, I guess I can put a link in the chat. Then give me just a moment. Um, yeah, this is crazy what's
and of course
happening
the
now.
Elpidophoros also had a meeting with the Ukrainian Greek Catholics in America, talking about how they have to have a common Easter, and they're going to have
Yeah,
a common Passover.
Reader John says the World Orthodox should not have been worried about the Russian world, but rather Romanian world.
Well, that's what they're
Uh,
talking about. The Romanians have spoken about that too. I guess Roman seen Mir now too as
oh
well.
wow, really?
Yes,
That's
Romanians have
crazy.
talked about that. They have their own ideas about it.
Uh, that's a compromise. Wonders if the Romanian Patriarchate was canonical. Well, I guess it is. Well,
I don't. I think people don't understand the the Romanian New Calendarists don't have the same ideas as even the other World Orthodox about these issues.
no.
Wherever there are Romanians, there will be a Romanian patriarchate. Even in America, didn't the Romanian diocese leave the OCA like a few years ago and go back to
Yeah.
the Romanian
Mhm.
New Calendar or something? So, you know, so it's not just America where they can talk about, oh, well, that's a parallel jurisdictions, and but no, this is happening in other places as
Everywhere.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so I thought that was interesting as
Yeah,
well.
no, it definitely is, and we'll probably be talking more about the Remain. I'll probably write something about the new Romanian Patriarchate of Ukraine on NFTU, which
Yeah.
kind of was developed this
A lot of
week.
the Interestingly, a lot of the stories we had to search for, we don't have to. I mean, there are probably 6, 7, 8 websites that are like this website, the Ukrainian Church
Yeah,
Website,
that are
and others
covering it. Well,
cover
it's
it.
obvious, it's newsworthy because you're talking about 120 parishes in Ukraine. That's not a small number.
There's several. I think if you go down, there might be several hundred more that they might take control of as well. They mentioned
Mm,
120, but there could be more.
yeah, so
So
this is bizarre, and unfortunately, it's this. I don't. Yeah, I just I'm amazed by the uncanonicity that they're willing to tolerate.
so this leaves the question open: is what do they define as canonical? What does that mean? And there's never been quite um, you know um, a good. They've never given a good definition of what they understand by canonical, other than sort of officialdom. That in essence, it has to be you're in communion with the ecumenical patriarch.
Yeah,
And then they can't use that really anymore. Now it's sort of you're in communion with the Moscow Patriarch or the Ecumenical Patriarch.
or the Romanian Patriarch.
Yeah, well, yeah, I suppose. Obviously, none of those are good definitions of canonical. They fly in the
Yeah,
face of 2,000 years of Orthodox Church history and such, and they reduce canonicity to essentially papism, which I think is their idea. So
yeah. So, um,
now you
aside from
recently had a discussion with this Father John Whitford.
Whiteford, yeah.
Yeah, Whiteford. Okay. And how do you think that went? I have not watched it yet, but what's your impression?
I think
And
it
having a
was.
week afterwards.
Yeah, I think we did put it up on this channel. I think it was productive. I think it went in a couple of different directions that we kind of saw coming. But I think Father John was not aware of the kind of hostility between Rokor and certain parts of the Serbian Patriarchate when they kind of went under the communists. And the JP situation is something that's um, so poorly studied that almost nobody knows it, even amongst Orthodox. If we're being honest, it's just us terminally online people who spend a lot of time poring over documents. Most people in this generation, unless they lived through it, don't. A lot of people don't even know about that. So it was good for that to come out.
Explain to me exactly what did he not understand about the Serbian Patriarchate and ROKOR hostility?
Well, I don't think I think he was kind of unaware, and again, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he was kind of unaware that there were true Orthodox that had been celebrating there in the 1970s, for example. It was the communion with the Holy Synod and Resistance and the Jerusalem Patriarchate was well known, so he would have known about that. But one might have gotten the impression, if they didn't know the history of true Orthodox in the Holy Land, that only occurred because of ROKOR. So that is a very real possibility. But you'd have to know a lot more to see.
So are there you're saying that Bishop Kyprianos and then his people in Palestine, in Jerusalem, did do stuff with the Jerusalem Patriarchate, you're saying?
Well, that was known. I mean, Patriarch Diodorus' speech to them when they can celebrate it is.
Well, but that was in Greek. That was at the St. Cyprian Justina Monastery in Philly in 1989.
Right, but he recalls them celebrating together in Jerusalem.
Yes.
So
well, I do know that. Remember, there was the controversy in '77 where Bishop Chrysostomos Chiusis served a pre-sanctified liturgy in the Jerusalem Patriarchate.
Right, and I mentioned that.
But what's forgotten is the controversy wasn't so much that he did it as that the previous Sunday it was claimed that a New Calendar bishop had been the one who had consecrated, the gifts or something like that.
Okay, I'm just gonna put one more thing on the screen. Hi, Father Boniface. How's it going?
Hello.
Good evening. How are you?
Okay. I will not reveal any details, but I am aware via source that many of the priests in GOARC and ROKOR are Masons, along with many of the former bishops. I believe that with the Greek Archdiocese. It's a lot harder for me to believe that with ROKOR, even the MP, just because I have such a long history of being against it.
Now I do know there was these years people accused Father George, Bishop Gregory of being a Freemason with no evidence.
Yeah,
but that was centered mainly around, I think, Father Epiphany in the late '80s and early '90s and such. But never had any evidence. I mean, especially considering the fact that Father George wrote for decades against Freemasonry. I think what they claimed was that there was an OCA parish that had joined ROKOR for this 6-month period in the late '70s.
Yeah,
and there had been Masons in it, and Mitch von Fillaret said you can't do this. And then they gave him 6 weeks to leave or something like that, and then they didn't leave Masonry, so then getting kicked out of ROKOR. And that's not a very strong pace to claim somebody's a Freemason over.
No,
when you're basically kicking them out for not believing it. So,
I have a question.
Yeah,
I watched your talk with Father John Whiteford, and one general observation that I have is that when you look at the estate of the world right now, and you look at the estate of the church, you have a tremendous breakdown, as we all know, in order. Mm-hmm. And so, the Orthodox Church cannot claim a czar or a patron monarch, and so therefore they're kind of left in disarray. And so every man, is doing what's right in their own eyes. Maybe that's too broad of a brush, but that wouldn't be true. I mean, they're trying to do canonical things, but there's so much divergence and difference, and so therefore the desire for unity is quite a challenge. But the point I want to make is that the New World Order, Satan has definitely made ransack of the hierarchical system, and so everyone's left to kind of determine their own way, and to strike a unity is very difficult. I was wondering if the churches could declare a monarch in exile in order to have uh, a an evangelical synod or something. But um, nevertheless, this is the general state of confusion, let's say, as all these churches are trying to eke out where they are the head. It's just the
Well,
state of affairs is in disorder.
Well, that's actually a very good question from a historical standpoint, because I think that to some degree, uh, I guess you could say ROCOR even felt a responsibility to try to handle something like that. And the fact that they always hosted members, members of the Russian royal family, etc. Um, I don't know that we necessarily have to create, like, say, for example, a Tsar in exile. It could be done, and I think that that's kind of, I mean, I think ROCOR might have been somewhat even half-heartedly preparing for that possibility. But I don't think that necessarily restoring a God-anointed monarch, which is the job of the church to anoint him, would necessarily mean it has to be a Tsar of Russia. It could always be another country that becomes Orthodox. I'm not saying that I'm against the idea of having a Tsar. I'm absolutely not. But the point is, the current state of Russia doesn't seem to indicate that that is something that I can see happening in the foreseeable future. Then again, history is largely, what's the word I'm looking for? Unpredictable in that sense. It could, what I'm saying now might be completely wrong in a week.
Well, the particular circumstances in which we exist today are simply unprecedented in church history. The whole combination, not the fact that you're resisting heresy, but that's actually quite common. The fact that there is no diarchy existing in the church, that there is mass heresy erupted, and combined with that mass heresy erupted and created a schism that affected the apostasy from orthodoxy of the ecumenical patriarchate, the Moscow patriarchate, even the ROCOR who joined the Moscow patriarchate. So sort of these people who seem, as the scripture says, who seem to be pillars, they turned out not to be in the long run. And it's sort of like you all sometimes will see papists attack Orthodox over this, but then again, look at the papal system as it exists today, and for some time. It's their system or the neo-papal system that the Fanar has created. So you can either be in sort of a situation of true orthodoxy where there is some bit of disarray, or you can be in sort of a unified papal system where there's sort of constant heresy at every single turn. And again, I think as Father Boniface has mentioned previously before in previous episodes, we're dealing with sort of this fallout from the creation of liberalism in the 17th century, where old concept of legitimate authority and power in all manners of society has been replaced with relativism, individualism, and because there is no spiritual center, the only way to effect something is through figures like the ecumenical patriarch or the Moscow patriarch. It's simply relying on the religious equivalent of brute force. That is, you do it because we say you do it, and they're not going to give you any explanation about it, because they simply have no rationale or ground for what they're saying.
And that's an issue. That's an issue of self-control.
Yes. Yes.
It's an issue of humility, and so some boundaries need to be set. I was just curious. What is the justification to combine yourself with the Moscow Patriarch, going back to the allegiance to Sergei, Patriarch Sergei? How can they justify, a man who apostatized, but even though he was not officially declared, was he heresy or Sergianism officially? So they seem to ride that train and take advantage of it, since there was no official declaration. But the idea would be, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, sounds like a duck, it's a duck. And so you don't need to make a pronouncement. You just see the obvious.
Yes. It'd be like saying, "Who excommunicated? It'd be like someone said, show me the paper of excommunication against Stalin. When did the bishop excommunicate him in 1900 whatever? And and obviously they can say, well, Stalin was never excommunicated, therefore
Yeah.
he died in the church. I mean, that's absurd. He was an atheist for after he left the seminary, if not before that. He was a brutal figure who attacked orthodoxy publicly. He was in regards to Sergius, I think actually there were condemnations of him by the Catacomb Church.
Yeah, but there was not an official ecumenical decision. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. So they'll say individuals did that from their own individual authority. But that's the point. It's like that argument is a continued smokescreen for what ends. What's their end point for holding to that position?
Well, I think the
And
end point is they think the brute reality is this: they could not get the Moscow Patriarchate to condemn Sergianism and ecumenism and modernism. It would not do it. It was created back really in 1942-43 as an adjunct of the Soviet government because of the German invasion, because the Russians were turning against Stalin, obviously, and such. So they created Sergius to kind of whip up a little bit of patriotism. Because before that, even though they'd had that declaration from 27, there's something like Sergius and his people were had 50 churches up until 1942 or 43. They were this small organization that had basically been destroyed and were serving as sort of a window dresser. So you're having with a system that ROKOR and others, they simply could not gain any ground. The Moscow Patriarchate had, from their perspective, too much power. The ROKOR people were being constantly attacked in the 1980s and 90s by the World Orthodox. And that sort of, after decades of that happening, what happens is people who are sort of weaker and who want to be more accepted, it grinds on their psychology. So they simply make compromises. They simply say, "Well, we can't get Kirill or Alexei to sign these declarations. Can they at least make a milk toast statement about something?" That's the best they could get. So I think that was sort of the groundwork. I mean, part of it may have been the idea that, and I have heard this said, that ROKOR had financial problems. Sometimes money comes into this, and they had money coming from the Moscow Patriarchate to help them keep Jordanville afloat.
I've heard that it was money coming from the WCC at times.
Yes, that may have been the issue. But I think again, you're going to have to be in this position where we're in. You're going to have a sort of strength of personality and devotion, and you're going to have to be willing to do things like, accept almost, in some cases, 24/7 attack. Maybe not always, but basically, you're going to have to be in the defensive constantly. And if you're in World Orthodoxy, you really don't have to do that. I mean, they can lose people and not really affect their overall bottom line. Because I think they tend to think in broad-based business terms. That they lose 4 or 5 people. Someone leaves ROKOR, Moscow Patriarchate, and joins Orthodoxy, or leaves the Greek Archdiocese, and maybe an old priest leaves and joins us, or something like that. They're not going to consider that to be a big loss. All right. So again, I think I think that's part of it. I think the other part has to do with this is part of the overall plan and ideology of modernism and ecumenism.
Yeah, I'm going to try to group the questions by topic because there's a few questions
Yeah,
on
okay,
this.
go ahead.
For
Got
the
my dog
record,
over here. Sorry.
so do I. All the Jedi questions, I'm not putting it because that's just my dog being stupid. Okay, so Rye writes, most monarchies are neutered these days, so I don't think existing monarchies will help. Death to Compromise says there's no true monarchies today that ended with the last Tsar of Russia. Rye asks, were there other Orthodox monasteries that lasted a handful of years longer? Tsar of Bulgaria, King of Greece.
Well, the Tsar of Bulgaria was Roman Catholic until 1945. The King of Greece, remember, the King of Greece was actually removed in 1919 during this coup, where the Masons came back into power and they got rid of the king and they got rid of all the conservatives in the church hierarchy. And they put the king's brother in power, who would do whatever they wanted. and that's what resulted eventually into replacing the synod so they could create the new calendar. And there was the king of Serbia, but I think the king of Serbia or Yugoslavia, King Alexander, maybe I can't quite remember. That
Right.
fell apart by being in end of World War II, and so.
Okay, and Rocco Remnant and Reader John I did ask for a blessing earlier, so that's okay. And Reader John also asked, I think it's interesting that Father John referred to the true Orthodox as going into schism, but they're the ones who actually left. Isn't schism when you break off and form your own thing? Yes, effectively, ROCOR MP was a new body. That's why we refer to it as ROCOR MP and not ROCOR, because even if the remaining parts of ROCOR that had to survive afterwards are more mangled up after, that's not an excuse to say that they're not the legitimate ROCOR that the Moscow Patriarchate is. So much of what happened would go against the ethos of what ROCOR really was, and so yeah,
It would be a bit like the Antiochians in 1725 saying that
right.
the
They're the
Orthodox is
legitimate
schismatic
Antiochian church
because majority of the Antiochians apostatized and joined papism in 1725.
right.
And essentially Orthodox had to reconstitute the entire Antiochian Patriarchate almost from scratch.
Well, yeah,
All-
no,
with all the
completely
bishops
from
left.
scratch, because Bishop Monk Sylvester was actually not a. I don't even know.
He was
I
a
think
Greek,
he
I
might have been
believe.
an archimandrite, but he had to go to Greece to be made a bishop and to restart everything.
Yeah, but I think the mentality is that whoever controls the organizational structure, that's the legitimate organization.
Right, and
I
that's
think
not
that's how they
some,
think. But that's not a
which
church.
is
That's not a church understanding in
right.
canon law. No. But you wanted the group try to answer some of the questions.
Well, that was those. I think were all of them for now, so that's good. If there are more questions, again, if you want to call in, feel free to call in using the link at the top of the chat. Comment or ask questions in the chat. So we have been here for about. We've been here
But
for.
Father Boniface makes a good point because even in world orthodoxy, the whole
Mhm.
situation is a mess, disintegrated mess at this point.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Now
I mean, you're not
the
even having.
illusion.
Yeah, the illusion is
Yeah,
created. You have a schism between the MP and the Fanar. You have the Romanian Patriarchate going into Ukraine, creating a whole new "quote unquote" canonical church, which is not going to be in communion with anybody.
mhm.
But yet you have the Archbishop Elpidorferos and the Fanar talking about gay marriage. And I think what this is constitutes in one way is sort of an abuse of respect for authority. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so when we talk about respect for authority, it's legitimate authority. It's not just anybody who takes over. And this is the question: if somebody breaks into your house and they tie like the father up and they put him in the basement, and the guy says, "Well, I'm the new father." All right, obviously, nobody would accept that. If the gang rolls in the town and they lock up the mayor and the police chief, and then the gang says it's the new mayor, obviously that would be some authority, some power, you might say, but it's not a legitimate authority.
Right.
So the question is, what creates legitimate authority? And it's not just simply because you have the most power or the most people. Because if that's the source of legitimate authority, then you would not be able to determine truth on the basis of. I mean, if you're going to be determining truth on the basis on the purely the basis of numbers, as opposed to not looking at any other source and
Right.
such. So I think if the Fanar can say it organizationally has the same buildings as it had as the church had in 1900 or something like that, and they can claim this continuity on the basis of that, even though there has been a doctrinal change in the past 120 years. Um, because of the doctrinal change, they lose authority. So obviously, there has to be some point to which, uh, if somebody even in legitimate authority begins, and this is forced church teaching, it's Canon 15 of the First Second Council. If a bishop begins to publicly preach heresies condemned by the fathers and councils, then you have the obligation to cease commemoration. And obviously, the subtext of that is there's going to be some sort of trial or some sort of foreign intervention to restore orthodoxy and such. We're in a situation in which we don't have the emperor and we don't have other Orthodox patriarchates who are actually going to help. And I think
You
this
know,
is the problem. And there's no like someone said, there are no monarchies. You're essentially dealing with a world that has been turned upside down from even what it was 220 years ago.
I was wondering, you made some good points. Let's say if you talked to some of these people, for example, Father John Whiteford, if you said the psychology is bad, finances are a motivation, which is bad, the ecumenism is bad. We call you out to true faith with virtue and integrity. And so therefore, what are you doing to make the crooked way straight? And so are you addressing those issues in particular, and tell me how you are doing it? You could write a list of, we see these problems and they are impediments to unity, and we want to promote canonicity and integrity and the true faith. And so therefore, what steps can we do? And then a lot of times they'll give an answer and they'll go off subject, or they'll start to obfuscate the problem with all these other issues, when I think it just needs to be said, look, I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to history. I'm saying, what are you doing about it in your context?
I think, Father, that's actually going to be addressed, because we're tentatively agreed to do another program where we will be talking about things like ecclesiology. So I think that's where we're going to really kind of navigate the difference between what Father John was part of when he joined ROCOR in 1990 and what he is part of now, because they're two very different bodies and structures with completely different mindsets.
I would say,
I'm sorry.
Let me make this point. I would say this, is that you could answer him with this: what are we all about? See what I'm saying? It's like, make a comparison and say, this is what we're holding to. We believe this is true. Therefore, do you have any criticisms of this? What are they? What do we need to make mend? Or are we right on target? And therefore, would it make sense for you to come in this direction? I mean, put the person, and not necessarily Father Whiteford, but put the person on the hot seat, because we need accountability, and we need to, by God's grace, seek unity and seek a healing, and also discipline and the righteous path. And so, I think sometimes people need to be confronted, and we ourselves also.
Yeah, absolutely. ROCOR Remnant asked a question, which I assume is for Bishop Enoch. And he says, I don't think people ask such a question these days, but what is the life of a bishop like?
Well, I'm a monk. I live at a monastery, so I go to the divine office. So, I mean, I hate to, say it can vary, but it can vary. I mean, obviously, someone who's a bishop who doesn't live in a monastery, and they're going to have a little bit different life. My life is not much different than that of a regular monk. And remember, I'm a vicar or auxiliary bishop also.
Yeah, not only that, but a lot of bishops, especially in these smaller communities, a lot of what they do is they're doing a lot of divine services. But past that, I mean, I think it's not glamorous. There are some cool ceremonies and things that happen, but overall, that's not really their lives. They're rather approachable people.
One point I like to make when Father Boniface is list of questions, and it's a good idea, is that you have to remember, when you approach people like part of ROCOR MP, and you say, we would like to talk about you, here we want to have a discussion with you. Their whole mentality is they're not going to approach it. If you give them a list about, will you condemn ecumenism? Will you condemn modernism? If you do these things, we can talk. Their attitude is going to be, that's not how we deal with things. You join us, and you don't ask us any questions. That's simply that's their discussion with you.
What I'd say to that?
Yes.
And that's a good point you're making. That's democracy in action.
Yes.
There's no authoritative figure. They're passing the buck and running circles like a gerbil spinning its wheel, and no one's taking accountability. And so that sounds like America to me sounds like committees, sounds like the Protestantism that I've had to deal with personally. It's like, it sounds like the American Congress. And so maybe we need to check you guys out to see whether you are really exercising authority within your own structures. We're attempting to purify ourselves and try and get back on track here. We've lost a lot of ground. And how are we going to reconstitute the proper authority structures? What are you doing about it? Because right now, it's with the answers you're giving me, you're on the gerbil tread.
Yeah, basically.
Well, again, I don't think ROCOR has an ideology. Moscow Patriarch of ROCOR has an ideology.
Yeah, no, not anymore. Now they're just
their ideology does not. Yeah. Their ideology is not founded upon reconstituting any kind of authority structure.
Right.
Their ideology is not much different than that exists in the OCA or the Antiochians. That is, it's simply to exist for the sake of existing and to serve maybe some ethnic Russian communities and some convert communities as long as they can. They don't have you talk to Father Boniface, you talk to me, you talk to Father Joseph, you talk to Lydia John, others. We have like an overarching worldview of what orthodoxy means and what that means in religion. It use the word religion, secular, but what it means in all forms of life. So, for example, we believe in monarchism. Okay, we believe that the state law should reflect the moral code of the Orthodox Church. We have this whole ideology around that's basis of it. Now, what are we doing? Well, basically, we're preaching the Orthodox faith, trying to convert people. And we're not in the greatest position, but we're, I guess, trying.
Yeah.
But what are they doing? And their answer is simply they want to conform to the American way of life. The American way of life, even on a so-called conservative basis, is based around libertarianism, individualism. I think you're going to have to look at it from that perspective, because if you go to them and you say, why don't you have an overarching worldview? They're probably going to say the church shouldn't be involved in politics, and the church shouldn't be involved in this, and you don't have to be a monarchist to be part of the church. Whereas the martyrs, like the Russian new martyrs, like Saint Vladimir of Kiev, the martyr who was martyred, said that any priest who was not a monarchist is not worthy to stand before the altar. But again,
there was somebody asked on the Discord, was there a bishop who anathematized democracy? And I could have sworn that this came up somewhere.
The Greek bishops did in 1916.
With the whole synod?
Yes, the Greek synod anathematized them. At least in Greece, they anathematized democracy.
I didn't know that. Okay, that's good to know. So 1916, I will be glad to bring that back up. Rai asks, what are good resources for learning about Western Rite Orthodoxy? There aren't many books written on the topic.
Well, you can talk to me. You can go to our YouTube channel for creating. You can
Traditional Western Orthodoxy is Bishop Enoch's channel.
We have a Gab group. You can call us on the phone. If you want to learn about traditional Western Rite Orthodoxy, we're the people to talk to.
Absolutely. Let me see here. Okay, this is more of a joke. Maximus Forsayag, that's the Melkite Uniate Patriarch. I'm not even taking that seriously. Reader John says, if Catholic and World Orthodox are talking about celebrating a common Easter, there will be another calendar system, right? Who would they decide to be canonical at that point? Now, this has been interesting because for a good part of the 20th century, the Roman Catholic and Orthodox celebrations of Pascha actually came pretty close. And I think next year, they will overlap again, but then there's no more overlap for, I think, something like 175 years, which means that something that we had grown accustomed to seeing in the 20th century will be completely alien for most people for probably the next 5 to 6 generations, if there are to be that so many, if God so allows. And what this means is that they're going to have to explain their dual calendar system to their people on a regular basis. And I think that it's going to impel many of them to eventually adopt either the papal calendar. I think fewer of them are going to return to the traditional calendar, keeping in mind, of course, that new calendars only make up about a quarter of the Orthodox world anyway.
Remember also that the Ukrainians that the Ecumenical Patriarchy created were forced to adopt the papal calendar, at least in part. And the great Ecumenical Patriarchs and bishops have been discussing with Roman Catholic bishops, as we mentioned previously, adopting a so-called common Easter.
Right.
So like this reader John asked, would there be another break over this? There might be. It possibly. I've actually been told that, and someone out there might be able to correct me if I'm mistaken, that there are like Moscow Patriarchate clergy who will not can celebrate with like Finnish church people because remember the Finnish so-called Finnish church celebrates Pascha. Yeah, they celebrate Pascha on the Roman Catholic
full
day,
papal calendar, yeah,
which is explicitly anathematized by the ecumenical council. There's really no justification to get around that. So I don't know what they're going to do, but there may be. I mean, there may indeed be another break. But the problem I see with it is if they do that, and they've done this since the 2018 break between the Fanar and Moscow, is they have to be very careful about trying to define themselves and in the manner in which they do this. Because remember, when that break happened, a lot of people said, "Well, I guess this proves the true Orthodox are right." I remember that. Like out of nowhere, people on Facebook are like, "Well, I guess you guys are right about stuff," because their whole basis of their worldview was sort of this monolithic entity of world Orthodoxy. And when that simply disintegrated before their eyes, it was like the scales for a lot of people just dropped. Not everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had to do a significant amount of damage control because remember, in that first year, you had Ukrainian Moscow Patriarchate bishops saying things like, "Well, maybe we should talk to the old calendarists." And there are 2 million of them in Greece, why do we need to be with the Fanar and such? And they actually sent people to a few of the true Orthodox synods in Greece,
right?
And I know they sent somebody to Metron Angelos, and because I was told about it. And Metron Angelos said, "Look, if you wanted to discuss with us this issue, then you have to condemn ecumenism and you have to condemn modernism. And you have to assure us there's going to be a break with the World Council of Churches and with the ecumenists and modernists of World Orthodox." And I think Bishop Photius Marathon of the Kalinicos Synod actually told him the same thing. And the Moscow Patriarch representative was like, "I'm sorry, we can't do that." So, unfortunately, and I think it demonstrates the Moscow Patriarch's ideology. It's still, for some, they're just simply committed to ecumenism. They're committed to the World Council of Churches. They're simply committed.
Well, also remember that when they send over people like that, diplomats have very little leeway in what they can. They have some negotiating power.
I understand,
but there's no way they could have said that with Patriarch Kirill in charge.
Well,
this is a surprise. Okay, hold on. Subdeacon Nectarios, welcome. Okay, so it's good to have you here. We're going to get through the rest of the questions real quick. Did you have a question, Subdeacon?
Someone said World Council of Churches.
Where? But that happens occasionally. We do talk about them. Welcome aboard. It's good to have you. I know that most of our audience probably knows who you are because of your recent work, your books, etc. But if you want to tell people about yourself, because to some people, I know that even during the debate I had with Father John, there were people who were like, "Wait, I thought Subdeacon Nectarios was with World Orthodoxy." So,
sorry, I'm very, very busy lately. So,
you have a lot of books coming up. I'm still waiting on that Life of St. Joseph of Petrograd, my namesake.
Yeah, we're about, she said April 25th, I think we're supposed to be done.
Yep.
Done translating, at least.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. That's not far. That's a month from now. 1 month and a half.
Yeah, we started in January, or November. Yeah, it's been a 6-month project because the book's like 700 something pages or so.
All right. Well, I don't know if you've done any kind of I know you're going to be doing a series of interviews with Bishop Oxentius of Etna pretty soon that you're going to be putting up. But since you're here first, I guess I can ask questions that people have been wondering because I know a few of them that I've heard a dozen times. So my first question is going to be this, which is we know that you came out with the book, the Rokor and the Genuine Orthodox Church of Greece. That was last year around August. How did this happen? Because you wrote that and people still thought you were in World Orthodoxy because 2 months before that you were in World Orthodoxy.
Yeah, sorry to disrupt the conversation. I forgot we were
No,
talking
no,
about
that's what
something
we
else.
do here. This is our Sunday show. Everyone just jumps in.
No, yeah. So I wrote I was in Roku at the time. I wrote well, I had intended to write the article because it's still up. The article's still up. So the
Right.
original article. So a friend of mine was like, "This article's pretty long. You should let's see. Someone's like, you should turn that into a book." Like,
This is weird. Somebody said, "Why did the Subdeacon Victorious NFT book review interview get taken down?" I don't think I did. Did I do an interview with you on the book?
no, you did like a little.
Yeah, I did a review.
Yeah, I think that's up there somewhere.
Okay, I might have been intending to do an interview, but that never happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know that it was kind of busy.
Yeah, I've been super swamped with back in grad school and work and books and getting stuff translated, and then I had to double check with Metropolitan, make sure I was in his good graces to be beyond. So
Well,
anyways,
we're glad to have you.
thanks. Yeah, it's good to. I've been meaning to come on. It's just been hectic lately. So, oh yeah, but the book. Yeah, so I wrote the article. I had always intended to write the article, and it was so long that I was able to turn it into a book. So, and then someone encouraged me, "Why don't you just start your own publishing company since you're writing such long things now?" I was like, I guess so.
And you used to work for the Orthodox Ethos team, correct?
Yeah, I used to do that. Yeah, wrote a few books for them already. So, yeah, one's coming out soon.
Is that the one? I know that they have the big compendium on Catholicism. Is that the one that?
Yeah,
I saw that. They sent out an email about that. I guess it's coming out like in 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, that was coming out, I think, in a few days now. Yeah, I wrote that whole thing. I put that together, but yeah, that's it's behind the scenes stuff. Yeah, it's long. It's like 1,016 pages.
Yeah, so, it looks fat. It looks like a big book. Very nice, thick volume.
I modeled it after St. Anthony's book, so it's kind of because St. Anthony's the Toll House book.
That was a big book too. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of modeled it after that. I was like, let's just end the discussion on this topic. And
all right, so now I'm gonna kind of catch up with comments. Yeah. While I do that, comments and questions. That's compromised as the World Orthodox priest was a catechumen under constantly referred to the Roman Catholic Church as the Church. The Reformers left the Church, etc. Yeah, that is extremely common. Unfortunately, we have seen that. Rocor has become the diaspora's pleaser, referring to Rocor MP. Yes, that's true. This looks like it was more of a question for DTC, so I'm going to leave that there. And yeah, it looks like they're having a sidebar. So overall trend is back towards the old calendar. The OCA's Diocese of Sitka has completely returned. I think they were mostly old calendar most of the time anyway. The Finnish government enforces it on them. Apparently, I don't know about that because they were the first ones to fully take on the new calendar as a result of the 1923 council. That's part of the reason why they're on the Gregorian calendar, because the double calendar was kind of a compromise to avoid riots. And Rocco Remen says, "Oh wow," I assume that's in reference to our guest here. The Finnish government said they would not get government funding if they used the Orthodox Pascha. I was not aware of that. Oof. They could celebrate on the Orthodox Pascha. They just have to ask the government for an exemption to get funding or give up state funding. Wow. Okay. Somebody wrote, "Subdeacon rocked the boat too much in World Orthodoxy." Well, yeah, I think that was. I kind of think that was kind of. Yeah, I see that Ride pre-ordered your book. Yeah, it was kind of it was an interesting path. It's been an interesting 12 months. I'll say that. I think we can all sort of agree there that it's been a pretty interesting year.
It's been an interesting 3 years, yeah. But it was, yeah, it's definitely been an interesting last 12 months or so. It's been things rapidly progressing, yeah.
All right. Well, also, I wanted to, I think that, you were kind of helpful with some of the details that you sent over that were helpful for bringing it out visually in the debate, the discussion really that we had with Father John. I know we're doing another show, so I know Patrick Craig Trulia mentioned having you on, so I think that would be good. But yeah, one thing, if you want to shout out your, I know you have a YouTube channel, correct?
Yeah, there's nothing on it though. I haven't.
Okay.
I've been doing interviews. So I did one with. I did one already with Bishop Oxentios. I gotta edit that, and then I'm doing another one with the Rokana priest, another GOC bishop in Greece. So I've got a few, and they're really interesting. The Bishop Oxentios one is really good.
I'm so curious to see them. I hope that these are going to be coming out soon, and I know you're busy, but we definitely are interested, and I think there's a lot of people who want to see it.
Yeah, it's going to be it's good. It's good because we go over a lot of these, like on the Orthodox Archive. There's that all those photos, so it's good to have someone like, oh yeah, I was doing this, and this is what we were doing here, and this is us this time. So it's kind of like the photos plus the person that's behind the photos given the. So it's really awesome.
Yeah, no, definitely. Did you have any questions or stuff, or you just were coming on to say hello, or
just coming to hang out for a bit since I was finally free of obligations? I just finished my class. I was in grad school, another class again, so I just finished the class tonight. So I'm like, school's done, and so I'm like, just hanging out.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you're welcome here. I think we're gonna go. We may be going for a little longer than an hour, depending on how many questions we get. We're just around minute 52. But for anyone, feel free to call in using the link at the top of the chat, comment, or questions in the chat. Feel free so that we can. Okay, that's in here. We already got one. So this is pretty easy though. Is Subdeacon Nectarios under the GOCK or ROCOR A?
Yeah, GOC. Yeah.
Okay.
I go to both though.
Now you're in the New York area. I got the impression.
I'm in Washington D.C. So yeah.
Oh no. So you okay? So you
yeah.
Both.
Yeah, we have both. So I go to today. I went to the ROCOR parish today, but normally I go there like once Sunday a month usually just to keep my Russian roots going. I like
Reader John says he is addicted to graduate studies. I don't know.
I needed it for. Well, I have one. I don't need. So this is gonna be it's gonna be my second one, but I was kind of needed.
Hey, everyone's just jumping on there. That's my impression. Okay. I don't know. He didn't strike me as that addicted to graduate studies, but I guess you guys know him. So, expensive addiction. Okay, guys.
Yeah, it's well, if I didn't go through all that school and that training, these books wouldn't be possible. All these things that I've been digging up and.
Well, glory to God. Yeah, no, definitely. A lot of people don't take advantage of that kind of when they do the whole like higher education thing, and frankly, you're using it well, and you're building a portfolio that's going to be worth it and very helpful to the church at large. So
yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there's so much stuff that's buried out there that we're just trying to find.
Yep,
so much stuff. Yeah, there's. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No.
Oh no! What I was going to say was I was watching. I watch a lot of YouTube channels and other kind of media channels. It seems like I'm moving around a lot, it's because there's a dog underneath me that's kind of. Anyway, Reader John's out. Reader John says I pick on the people I like. So okay, but what I was going to say is I was watching one of these channels where they were talking about what's the word? Like the World Economic Forum and their kind of plans. It seems like they've been talking about an event, and most likely it'll be a cyber event. And people have, and they were talking. The two hosts were discussing the possibility of having to rebuild the encyclopedic knowledge that we have with the internet now, in case they try to destroy it. Mm-hmm. And printed text is obviously going to be a big part of this, because if everything that's digitized is lost, I mean, they compared it to the burning of the Library of Alexandria, which is a terrifying thought when you're looking at it at the scope that it is now. But that is, it is possible. So, these books are providing a service, and bringing them back is providing a service, even if it seems like, I used to think it was kind of redundant, but now I'm stuck because I took the internet for granted. But they may not be there in a few years, and we may be going back to, talking on CB radios and talking to people on the street.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of going backwards with like stuff like Telegram. It's kind of like old for those people that are old enough. It's like AOL chat rooms. Remember those?
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, went from Facebook, now Facebook's taking a dive, and now people are going to Telegram and stuff. I think Gab's probably the same way, isn't it?
Facebook?
No, it's like Telegram. It's like chat rooms, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's both. It's like a kind of Facebook-esque, and then it has the chat, but it's unencrypted chat, so that's not really a thing. But their big thing now, because Gab moved into AI, and they put in some LLMs that are less biased, which work fairly well. I will say that. But it's become a source of revenue for them, and it's actually eclipsing the social. So they may just go straight to being a full AI company with a social on the side. Yeah. So okay. Again, folks, use the link at the top of the chat if you want to join in. Feel free to comment or ask questions in the chat. We are at minute 57. I will say this just in case we decide to go around and talk about plugging our respective sources, and so how can you people reach you? What's the best way to reach you in general? You mentioned Telegram.
Yeah, well, Telegram is you can just see what I post, but just email me through my website. That's the easiest. Yeah.
Orthodox Traditionalist Publication.
That's what is it? OrthodoxTraditionalist.com. Yeah, that's what I use.
Okay.
Yeah, if you go to the scroll down to the bottom, there's like a contact form there. But yeah, so yeah,
you're also on Twitter now. You're new on Twitter. I noticed that.
Yeah, I don't really use it. I don't even know how many people I have on Twitter.
Probably a few hundred. I would assume it's Oh, okay. Well, this is good to know because Dutch Compromise says, "Can Subseek and Nectario say what the next book is for Orthodox Traditionalist Publications?" You just came out with a new book, right? A reprint of Bishop Gregory Grabe, I believe.
Yeah, I just did that one. That one.
For those who don't know,
Yeah, the devil was trying to keep that one down, and we kept running into roadblocks after roadblocks with that one. So that one was. We were having issues with the cover, trying to get the cover made, so I finally worked that out. Hopefully, the cover turned out good.
It looks good from what I can see.
Yeah.
And so, I believe that one is the canonical legal status of the Moscow Patriarchate. And so, if you go to his website, orthodoxtraditionalist.com, that is also going to be. It's definitely worth picking up. Someone says cover looks great, mint.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the next book I'm writing I'm writing a book right now, which is kind of I'm not saying what it is, but it's going to be. I'm already at 200 pages, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. But officially, we're doing. Actually, the next book is supposed to be the St. Joseph book. So
that's coming out next. It's going to be translation will be done by April 25th.
Yeah, I actually have to remind myself what I have on the. What am I saying? Forum. I'm thinking of the cafe, and I typed in forum.
The cafe is great. I mean, it's good to see that you're occasionally active there. So I'm like, this is again. I recommend to everyone try the Euphrosynos Cafe if you haven't been there yet. I'm still looking at trying to get that shortened. We do have a shortened domain for it that will make it a lot easier to access. But until then, okay, so Bishop Enoch is saying, we'll talk later. God bless. Okay, so we're down to 3. Okay, heading out. All right, so.
Yeah, so St. Joseph of Petrograd, that's next. And then I'm doing my own edition of St. Philaret. The original one I did, I'm doing another one because I found 70 audio recordings of St. Philaret. Yeah. So I'm having over the last year and a half, I've been having those translated like 1 or 2 every week.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that's hasn't been seen or heard. Some of his more very zealot stuff is in those.
Yeah, definitely. He gave very fiery speeches, so I'm looking forward to this when it comes out.
Yeah, so we're doing that, and then I also found about 30 or 40 audio recordings from Metropolitan Vitaly Ustinov.
Okay.
So I'm going to have those translated, and those are some of his fiery stuff too. So, yeah, but if you want to see all the books that are coming out, it's kind of in order. If you go to the forthcoming books on my website, there's like 15 of them, and most of them are the catacomb saints and stuff like that.
Awesome. Well, again, everyone, if you want to take a look at what Subdeacon Atarios is doing, go to orthodoxtraditionalist.com. Bishop Enoch has signed off for the night. So I am going to take off now. Father Boniface, I did want to talk to you for a second after the show because there's something that I needed to talk to you about.
Okay.
And that's unrelated to the show. But it was something I talked to you earlier. And Subdeacon Atarios, it was a pleasure having you. You are always welcome. So
good seeing you guys.
It's we do this every Sunday, and whenever you want to pop in, feel free.
Awesome. It's good seeing you, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, take care, and everybody thank you everyone who is here for listening, for those who had questions, those who asked for prayers, those who wanted to comment, etc. Again, thank you for being here, and so we're going to take off. So I'm just going to quickly say again, remember we have another stream on Tuesday. I've got one with Father Antonios talking about rebuilding the world. And so that one will be on Tuesday. I believe it'll be a little bit earlier, around, I think around 6-ish. Roke Remnant says, good night, Father Boniface and Deacon Atarios. No problem. We are also going to go. So everyone have a good night. Today was Meat Fair Sunday. It's going into the Sexagesima period on the Western Rite. The point is, for everyone who's getting ready for a good fast, prayers for your success with that, and have a great night. God bless you all.